Hey everyone, here we are, 1.7, the water cycle. And I know what many of you are thinking. Didn't we learn the water cycle way back when? Yeah, you probably did. And I am going to take that assumption that you've already learned most of this and kind of fly through this topic pretty quick. So hopefully you're not too disappointed. If the water cycle is your favorite topic of all time, send me an email. I'll gladly spend more time with you talking about it. But for right now, we're going to kind of move through in a little bit quicker of a manner. Here are the standards we need to know. Again, we've probably covered this at some point in time in your life, so hopefully we won't have too many difficulties with it. So let's go through this in case you were sleeping during the fourth grade when you first learned about the water cycle. What is precipitation? Precipitation is when water falls to the earth. Now we know that precipitation can take many different forms: rain, snow, sleet, or hail. But all of those are different ways in which water is actually falling to the earth. What happens is that you have small little droplets forming clouds, and eventually those droplets bounce into each other and then they stick together into larger and larger droplets. And eventually, if there's enough of those larger droplets, they continue to combine together to even bigger droplets and then will fall to the earth because it can no longer be suspended in the atmosphere. And so that is an interesting way in which we see how precipitation falls. If you get the chance to see hail, take a look at a hailstone. It's actually like a jawbreaker in that a raindrop has formed, and then there's a lot of vertical uplift, which blew that raindrop up. It froze solid, and then it started to fall back down again, picked up more water, kept getting blown back and around. So what actually starts to happen is it just gets layers built on top of it, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's just something cool to take a look at. Probably my favorite type of precipitation, if I had to rank my favorite types of precipitation. Condensation, if you didn't know what condensation is when gas goes from, or anything goes from a gaseous form to a liquid form. So condensation is just going from a gaseous form to a liquid form. Water, when it happens, it forms a cloud. You have a water vapor. Okay, so gaseous water goes up into the atmosphere. As you go up into the atmosphere, it's going to cool down. Cooling temperatures will cause it to condense out of its gaseous state into a liquid state, and then eventually it combines together to form, the opaqueness that we see of clouds, and eventually will fall to the earth as precipitation if it gets to a large enough amount. Next, we get to evaporation. Evaporation is when you go from a liquid to a gaseous form, so you have to put energy in. So you're putting energy into the water, sunlight energy coming in, heat energy coming in, eventually causes water to go through a phase change from a liquid to a gaseous state. All right, that's what I assume you knew. Hopefully that was what everyone knew. You're probably already bored and you're like, how can I fast forward through this even faster? Well, this is the part where I want you to kind of just really make sure you understand this terminology. Transpiration, also commonly referred to as evapotranspiration. Transpiration is a homeostatic regulation based on plants. What they do is they have their leaves, but on the underside of their leaves, we know they have a hole in them called a stoma. And that stoma allows for gas exchange. Now, why do they have to go through gas exchange? Well, they need to get oxygen into the leaves. They need to get carbon dioxide into leaves and oxygen out of the leaves. That's so they can go through photosynthesis. But water is also in there. And water, because the leaves are absorbing so much solar energy, that water is going through a phase change. So oftentimes, water is leaving through the leaves, through the stoma of the plants. And that's actually, if we cycle back a couple lessons we've already talked about, why we don't get broadleaf plants living up in boreal conditions, because all that water loss will dehydrate the plants if there's not enough available water for it to grow. That's why you only get coniferous plants growing up in boreal forests. So evapotranspiration. Ever in a survival situation, you need to survive, get a clear plastic bag, put it over a large branch if you can, or a bunch in a bush, pull a bunch of leaves in there. And what will eventually happen is the plants will push out water, and at the very bottom, you'll start to see water droplets accumulating. So I just saved your lives. This class is already amazingly beneficial to you. Here's another big term: an impermeable surface. Impermeable surface is something that water cannot infiltrate through. Now, it's like, Makes sense. Like a rock. Water hits the rock and it just flows off. Well, the thing is, humans have been modifying the environment to create a lot of impermeable surface. In Chamonix High School, for example, all that roof line is impermeable surface. It rains. Now, yes, on more than one occasion, that rain does work its way into Neshaminy High School, okay? But that's not the intention of it. But when that rain hits, it then gets pushed off through gutter systems and away, so it doesn't actually get to the ground underneath us. All of America's roadways, our parking lots, buildings, all that stuff does not let water through. So that's a whole lot of impermeable surface that we've been building that is actually stopping water from really cycling through, because water is no longer getting down into the underground reservoirs, which we actually need. Retention basins. We're going to talk about this later on in our lessons, but retention basins actually are something that you've often seen places building. Anytime, especially in our area, Middletown Township, Lower Southampton Township, they have laws that pretty much control. If you are going to build something that's going to create more impermeable surface, you have to put in a retention basin. Really simplified understanding of a retention basin: water flowing water coming down hits the impenetrable surface or impermeable surface. It's then going to want to go directly into a local waterway. What that means is the local waterways reach capacity faster, so they can reach flood stages faster. So what a retention basin does is it somehow forms a little mitigation between the impermeable surface and the body of water. So it might hit a parking lot and go into a retention basin, where then it will slowly be discharged into the local body of water. So it doesn't just increase the volume of water in that creek, river, stream really, really rapidly to lead to flooding conditions. So that's why if you think about our campus out near the stadium, that gravel lot, why is it called the gravel lot? Is Neshaminy not able to afford to pave it? Well, Neshaminy can pave it, but Middletown says no. Middletown says you don't need to pave that. You don't, unless you want to put in a retention basin. And Neshaminy's like, we'll hold off on that one. So that's why we have that. So, like with all the other cycles, let me quickly go through one more time with you all the different details. So give me 1 second here. Here we go. All right. Let's start with water as a gas going up into the atmosphere. It's eventually going to condense, and condenses into clouds. Why is it condense? Well, it condenses when it reaches a certain temperature. We're going to learn on later in the year that as you go up in the Earth's atmosphere, the temperature goes down. That's why the bottom of this cloud seems pretty level, because that's the level at which condensation is occurring. Now, eventually these clouds kind of join together and eventually get bigger and bigger droplets that are going to fall to the Earth. Falls, again, is one of the forms of precipitation. Eventually, then it will become runoff. It will be considered runoff if it does not infiltrate into the ground. So infiltration is when it goes into the ground and recharges the groundwater, but it becomes runoff if it does not. So impermeable surfaces, my little house here, will increase the runoff going into a local body of water. Now it's going to accumulate. So I'm just going to bring the runoff. We're going to believe that there's a stream going into the ocean here, and it eventually accumulates into large bodies of water. Solar energy coming down is going to cause it to evaporate again. Back up, it will condense. It's going to condense, and then it's just going to cycle its way through all over again. Now, again, putting in those advanced terminologies, make sure you understand that plants are going through transpiration, so there is water coming off of plants and cycling back out. All right, and with that, I complete a horrible drawing of the water cycle, but it is something that hopefully you understand. Hopefully you understand the in-depth detail associated with it. If you have any questions, you know what to do. You know how to send me that email in case you have any problems. And I know that you are just on the edge of your seat, ready for the next lesson, and I can't wait to give it to you. So check in next time, and we're going to learn about the last of the biogeochemical cycles. Have a great day.
You like that lesson? I know you did. So why don't you go ahead and smash that like button right now. Go ahead and comment. Tell all your friends about how great that lesson was. And make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to keep bringing you AP environmental content that you're going to want to watch. Or do whatever else those other YouTube channels tell you to do. And with that, Maloney